What's going on, everybody? I'm sure you are mock drafted out at this point, but that's why here today on the Fantasy Life Show, going to be doing things a bit different and giving you each and every team's best fantasy pick, not necessarily in round one, but looking across their needs and overall pick selections. Again, going through what would make the most sense for them in the fantasy football world. But of course, I cannot accomplish this alone. Accordingly, I am joined by Fantasy Life Director of Analytics, Dwayne "The Rock" McFarland, as well as our lead draft expert, Thor Nystrom. So, Thor, it's almost draft day, man, but I don't think I've ever actually gotten your thoughts on, the real draft day, the critically acclaimed cinema masterpiece. How do you feel about, one of the best movies of the 21st century?
I call today the Wednesday before round one. I call it football Christmas Eve. And there's, on the real Christmas Eve, you watch the one with the kid and he shoots his eye out or whatever, what a Christmas movie or whatever that's called. But on football Christmas Eve, you watch draft day. You sit down with Sonny Weaver Jr., go through his progression. You meet Bo Callahan. You do the whole thing, Elvin Mack, and, the whole deal. So that's what I'll be doing this evening to get myself ready for the NFL draft. We're almost there, boys.
I absolutely love that energy. And I love that, again, you're not trying to pick apart the masterpiece that is draft day. Dwayne, I hope you're not going to sit here and cry about how unrealistic it is. Just embrace it, Dwayne. Is that so hard?
No, you're the guy that cries about how unrealistic football shows are. Like we all try to enjoy Remember the Titans, and you just bash it all the time. So no, I'm not one of those people like you, Hardits. I can sit down and enjoy draft day. And you got Kevin Costner. I feel like they should reshoot it and let Taylor Sheridan direct it, since Taylor Sheridan directs everything now, and apparently those two guys don't like each other. That could be pretty fun.
All of a sudden have some weird, you could argue, not even necessarily a cowboy twist, I'm sure, if we get Sheridan in the works. So we'll see what happens there. But again, guys, the goal of today's show is the top fantasy pick for all 32 teams. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and get after it. Dwayne, we'll be going in the normal draft order. However, you are not, forced to exactly use their first round pick. However, with the Tennessee Titans, you are sitting pretty at the 101. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm taking Cam Ward. I know that Thor's going to be upset with me, and maybe this should be Shedeur Sanders, but the bottom line is they've got to take the quarterback. Maybe that opens up a possibility that early in round two, Ian, they do get one of those wide receivers that are falling in that range, right? Could be Egbuka, although he's moving up here lately, could be a Luther Burden, who's pick 36 right now in consensus mock draft. So, but if we don't have a quarterback to throw the ball to those guys, it gets a little bit hairy. So yeah, I would like to see them take a quarterback at one. Right now, I am saying Cam Ward for the Titans. I know, real shocker.
Cam Ward not exactly hiding this match. He was actually, I think, playing Fortnite or something the other day and got asked to rank his top 4 NFL wide receivers. He went with Calvin Ridley, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and yes, Treylon Burks. Maybe this is finally the year. But moving right along to our second pick, the Cleveland Browns. I will not be using their 102 selection. Good on them for getting Travis Hunter or whoever. But instead, I'm looking at that third round pick, 67th overall, and accordingly, we'll be taking Arizona State running back Cam Scatterbo. I think there's Peyton Hillis 2.0 vibes here. Yes, partly because they're both white, but also because we have a true just grinder, a guy that wants to run through your freaking face mask guy, and Cam Scatterbo. I think the city of Cleveland would fall in love with him. And you look at the depth chart, he actually would complement, I guess your incumbent starter at this point, Jerome Ford, very well. And again, just kind of looking at the Browns, it's a wide open running back depth chart. Maybe the offensive line can make some improvements, with those day 2 picks, round 2 and stuff. But just with Scatterbo there, he really would have the chance to take over and have that full 3-down role. As we talked on the show yesterday, Scatterbo is one of those guys, again, rounds 2 and 3 and beyond, who actually does have the receiving upside where you can talk yourself into a big fantasy performance. So Cam Scatterbo for the Cleveland Browns, sign me up there. Thor, going to the New York Football Giants now. You will not be using the 103 pick on a quarterback. However, you still do have them getting their quarterback of the future just in round 2.
Yeah, the Giants with that 3 slot appear to be zeroing in on Abdul Carter as we get closer and closer to the draft, which means you have to use their secondary pick on an offensive guy, and I think it's going to be a quarterback, right? They signed the 2 veteran quarterbacks in free agency, but the organization needs a quarterback of the future, and I would posit to you that the administration and the coaching staff of the New York Giants also do. they need to make an argument to survive beyond this coming season, and the roster isn't great. I think you bolster your argument if you select a rookie quarterback who shows any flashes at all. That could end up being Jalen Milroe, right? And New York, just like Cleveland, they have the ammunition to trade up from the early round 2. There has been reports that they are looking at that. Jalen Milroe, going to the NFL, this is a boomer bust guy for sure, but you have 2 superpowers with him, tremendous scrambler, 220 pounds, and Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, last week mentioned that he thought he would enter the NFL as the fastest quarterback, even faster than Lamar Jackson. And then Jalen Milroe is a tremendous deep ball thrower, one of the best we've had coming to the NFL the last decade. So you get those 2 superpowers. Can we teach him the other stuff? There isn't a lot of nuance on his throwing. There's a lot of fastballs. We need him to take some off sometimes. The layering throws, we haven't seen that. The anticipatory throws, the stuff in the intermediate sector of the field. The reason that Kalen DeBoer got, was there was a push and pull with Milroe last year at Alabama. But wherever he goes, you have that shot at a cheat code in fantasy, particularly in Superflex leagues. Jalen Milroe is being underrated in those right now. I saw a consensus ranking where Jalen Milroe is ranked as the 18th. He's going right now as like the 18th rookie or whatever. QB4 behind 6 wide receivers, 6 running backs. That's too late. In a super flex league, this guy could turn into a cheat code, regardless of the team that he's playing for. I think Dable could have some fun with him, but Jalen Milroe going underdrafted, if you're in a super flex league, I would prioritize getting Jalen Milroe a little bit earlier than that.
'Tis the season for anonymous quotes about these prospects, and we actually had an AFC coordinator say that Milroe is, quote, the best running quarterback I've ever evaluated. He's like Cam Newton's power with Lamar's speed. So maybe a little bit of hyperbole there, but he is a very good rushing quarterback nonetheless. But Dwayne, you are back on the clock, this time picking for the New England Patriots. Again, consensus at this point has them taking Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick. However, you're looking for the 2nd round pick, overall 38th pick in the draft, to get Drake May, another offensive weapon.
Yeah, pick 4 probably a little too high, right, to go after one of the wide receivers. But once we get to the beginning of that 2nd round, I think there's going to be some options there that are going to slide to them. And Luther Burden really looks like the guy. In the latest mock drafts, we've got him going at pick 36, so he's fallen another 2 spots since we spoke earlier this week. So that gets him pretty close to the Patriots pick. So I think they're going to have a shot. This is a guy that teams have concerns about, obviously, because a lot of his work came around the line of scrimmage, gadgety plays. But again, when you look at him in the supermodel, he comps to some other guys that had really similar profiles as far as how many of their targets came behind the line of scrimmage versus how many of them they were able to get deep down the field. And 2 of those names that came up as comps were Brandon Ayuk as well as Calvin Ridley. Now, those 2 guys played more on the outside than what we saw from Burden in college, but Lance Zierlein did write up in his scouting profile. He sees an NFL team unlocking a new level to Burden's game, and he doesn't think that he just has to be this satellite player around the line of scrimmage. So when you look at the comps in the model, Ian, guys that are closest to him based on this little bit of a move down in draft capital, we've got T. Higgins sitting right there. Vlad McConkey is sitting next to him. And then you've got below that Michael Pittman Jr., Debo Samuel, even A.J. Brown right there in that range. So it's a real sweet spot in drafts where people have managed to hit some. So I think with Luther Burden, it's a situation also where the Patriots have to get someone else for Drake May. We know they added Stephon Diggs coming off the ACL, probably not going to be right at the beginning of the year. And who knows what we even have with Stephon Diggs at this point in his age. Was already starting to deteriorate. But once you look past Diggs, like there's nothing. Like we have Hunter Henry, right? And like Austin Hooper, like you're trying to run 12 personnel. Like we've flirted with Kendrick Bourne in the past and Demario Douglas, but I think you really are looking to add a playmaker. And I think there's a shot that you're really getting that in Burden. So yeah, I love that pick at the beginning of round 2 for the Patriots.
Patriots again have pick 4, pick 38, pick 69, and pick 77 inside the first 3 rounds. So would really like to see them again use at least 1, if not 2, to get Drake May some new pass catchers. Moving right along, I am picking for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Will not be touching their 5th overall pick, although many these days, including Thor, I believe, in his most recent mock draft, has them going with Ashton Genty. I am looking at either their 2nd or 3rd round. We'll go ahead and say 3rd round to hopefully make me look smarter. Pick 70. Give me Harold Fannin Jr., someone that we cannot stop talking about on the Fantasy Live show. And why would we? Because my man's has just come off the single most productive season from a tight end in the 21st century. So, maybe if you're able to go out there and block guys and also catch, enough passes to gain 1,500 freaking yards, you're a pretty darn good football player. So don't, spare me your whole, oh, what about Brenton Strange? What about Brenton Strange? None of you even knew who he was before a couple months ago, and we started making funny memes about him after Evan Ingram, took his talents over there to Denver. So with all due respect to Brenton Strange, I do think that Fannin can come in there, take that job, and maybe just be a full-time big slot. I mean, that is one of the potential roles we're looking for with Fannin, and with Christian Kirk also out of town. I know BTJ is going to get some run inside as well, but Fannin actually could end up emerging as Jacksonville's, de facto number 2 wide receiver / their tight end. Really great fit. And we get Trevor Lawrence, another weapon. So I am feeling good about that one. Thor mentioned again that the likelihood we are going to see Ashton Jeanty go to the Jaguars at 5. However, you're picking for the Raiders at 6. Would be pretty cool if he happened to fall just one slot after, again, the Jaguars.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly things change in the draft community, especially coming from months of groupthink. Jeanty at first, you begin the process, the groupthink was everyone had him to Dallas, right? And then we had a period where it's like, nope, that's too late. It's going to be Las Vegas. And now the tide appears to be changing of Las Vegas might not get access to Jeanty, and perhaps they never were going to. There's been a lot of steam now about Jeanty going in the top 5. In fact, last night he moved to even money on that on Tuesday night, 48 hours before the draft. But if he did get to the Raiders, this would be a tremendous fit. Any running back that gets to the Raiders, really, the situation, as you guys know, is pretty ideal. I believe Raheem Mostert is their projected starter right now. You're in a Chip Kelly offense. They will be running the ball. There's creativity there as well, of course. Jeanty, wherever he goes for next year in fantasy, he's certainly going to be a top 3 guy for me. And I think you can start to make the argument of 1. If he went to the Raiders, I think you could potentially make an argument and says him as the number 1 overall player. And I'm talking next year. Goes without saying in Dynasty. I even think, you look at the sports books, I think the odds are you're getting too much value on Jeanty to vote for him for some of the awards, like Offensive Player of the Year. Super duper juiced odds. Ashton Jeanty is going to go nuts from day one in the NFL. So the Raiders would be a good fit, but wherever he goes.
Really, I mean, Saquon and Bijan, maybe the only 2 guys you could confidently rank ahead of Jeanty. But even then, I don't think we would be shocked if he happens to outperform even those ballers in year 1. Dwayne, we're going back to you, picking for the New York Jets here. Now, you will not be using the number 7 pick on a tight end. However, you do like what you're seeing over there in round 2.
Yeah, so this is one of those situations where I don't want the Jets to take Tyler Warren. I don't want Tyler Warren to go to the Jets, so I'm going to give him Mason Taylor in round 2. Somehow they fall in love with Mason Taylor. He's going at the top half of round 2, so it's in a spot where the Jets are going to have access to him. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah and some folks are saying late round 1 potentially for Mason Taylor now, but knowing that they could get him in round 2 if they like him at all, and then we can keep Tyler Warren away from having to play for the Jets, an offense where, look, as much as we like Justin Fields and his upside for fantasy at the quarterback position, it's not ideal for what he does as a passer. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's averaging, 150, 175 passing yards per game, already going to have to feed Garrett Wilson, and now you got to add Tyler Warren to that. So I'm trying to be greedy here. I'm not that into Mason Taylor as a fantasy prospect, so I'm going to give him to the Jets and let him land with that passing offense, and we get Tyler Warren to go somewhere else where we can get more fantasy value. So I have to say I was completely a fantasy homer in the way I made this one work out.
Sorry, Jets, maybe not exactly what you wanted to hear from Dwayne there, but, Mason Taylor is still a young developmental guy. Hopefully, again, round 2, at least that would be quality value there. So moving right along now, pick 8, I am talking through the Carolina Panthers, who I would love to see for once add someone else to this passing game to help out Bryce Young. Okay, we are sitting here now in late April, and we are still expecting them to trot out Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, and Jalen Coker as their top 3 wide receivers. And I love Coker as much as all you other cokeheads out there, but can we please get someone that can stretch the field, aka use that 2nd round pick overall 57th on either Washington State wide receiver Kyle Williams or even Iowa State wide receiver Jalen Noel. So if you guys haven't checked out Thor's top 500, again, he comps every single player. His comps are these guys. Kyle Williams is Marvin Mims, and Jalen Noel is going to be Christian Kirk. 2 guys, especially Mims, who we know can stretch the field. So speed, especially for Williams. That's why I am giving him the overall nod. But I just think we need to see someone in Carolina that can line up outside, when deep, and actually put some fear in those defensive backs. Thielen's an old man at this point. Legette never looked as fast as his 4.39 speed on film. And again, with all due respect to Jalen Coker, I do think he's better off as a wide receiver 4. So as it stands right now, the main contribution the Panthers have made to their offense is Rico Dowdle, which Okay, he's going to be your backup running back. Come on, guys, use some serious draft capital. Get Bryce Young another weapon. Let's see what happens. So that's what I'm doing with the Panthers. But now, Thor, we are going to you. You are sitting with the Saints, now pick 9. Dwayne already, passed on Tyler Warren, so it seems like someone else has to scoop him up.
Yeah, I had to here for the New Orleans Saints, team that need a whole lot. But one thing that their new offensive leaning staff would like is a guy who can merely just advance the football for you, right? You have such a dearth of talent there and you have so many holes. Even that simple act of advancing the football, it'd be nice to know we got someone that can do that. Tyler Warren's that dude. The guy wears number 44 because he grew up idolizing John Reagan's, him and his dad, and that's the way that he runs. He's just a big berserker out there. You can use him as a goal line wildcat quarterback. You're going to see a lot of that in the NFL as well, as we did last year at Penn State. So that guy he's going to be sniping touchdowns from other offensive guys. It'd be interesting to see where he lands, and if owners of the other players in the skill group there start to get mad that Tyler Warren siphons some of these touchdowns as a runner within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. But then you also have all the manufactured stuff, the manufactured touch stuff. In PPR leagues, this guy's going to be super duper valuable because you shuttle the ball to him a lot of touches within 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. They got creative with him at Penn State. They're going to do it in the NFL as well because of how skilled he is with the ball in his hands. He broke a tackle, I believe, 1 every 2 rushing carries last year against predominantly stacked boxes. And you see the same thing when he has the ball in space, of course, just becomes that big berserker. But he would be a good fit for the New Orleans Saints or any team that's looking to manufacture some offense. And I think that this guy, he's almost landing spot independent. There's other guys that are closer to the context of the situation they're in, are going to inform their immediate fantasy viability. My take on Tyler Warren is the same thing as with Brock Bowers last year, because those guys, the organization that picks him, you're going to manufacture those touches for them right around the line of scrimmage, just like they did there last year at college. Specialized usage for a college tight end. You're going to see the same thing with Tyler Warren that you saw with Brock Bowers, regardless of where he lines up.
Certainly an organization who's been more than happy to use their tight ends in creative ways. I'm imagining, Tyler Warren passing Taysom Hill in the locker room, and it's like that scene from Zoolander, Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson going by each other. So we will see what happens with that one. But yeah, honestly, very realistic. We certainly do expect Warren to go inside the top 10 picks. Dwayne, you actually are going to be rounding out the top 10 here with the Chicago Bears. However, not looking at a running back with pick 10. With that, you're actually looking to go into round 2, pick 41.
Yeah, at one point there was a potential, right, that Genty makes it to 10, but it feels like that's off the board at this point. With now the Jags in there, we know that the Raiders, they've definitely warmed up to him. So I don't feel like that's plausible. And then when you look at the pick where you're going in round 1, I just don't think the value is there to pull the trigger on the running back in round 1 once Genty's gone. You could technically go with Omari and Hampton, but there's just so much depth if you go down to round 2. Now, this one might be a little tricky too, but it's Trevion Henderson. He's now getting a lot of steam towards the end of round 1, specifically with the Chiefs. Saw a really funny tweet today from Pat Thorman, and he said instead of saying Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it was Clyde Edwards Repair, which would be the pick that you're making here with Trevion Henderson. You're repairing the damage that you did by taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of round 1 a few years ago. So pretty funny stuff there. But I think Trevion is just a good fit with a schemer like Ben Johnson, right? Someone that knows how to get his guys in space, knows how to scheme up things that are going to make the defense think that something's going one way, and then you unleash the speed on the backside of the play with a guy like Trevion Henderson. So just really hoping that Trevion gets matched up with one of these really innovative play callers. That's what I'm looking for. Obviously, the Bears need some help in the backfield, so I just think it makes a lot of sense if he's there at the top of round 2 to add to the receiving core that they've already got going with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. Be nice to add that explosive weapon out of the backfield.
Be a nice little, tandem there with DeAndre Swift, Henderson and Swift, basically lightning and lightning coming at you out of the Bears. Certainly, both guys should have more success this year behind that revamped offensive line. Hopefully, Ben Johnson's, ever great scheme. So good stuff there, and also good stuff coming from our team over at Fantasy Life, because guys, we have an early bird sale for Fantasy Life Plus, our premium product over here at Fantasy Life. And man, some of the changes we have going ahead for you guys ahead of this next season, cannot wait to get into it. So in the meantime, still going to have Dwayne Dwayne's critically acclaimed, award-winning utilization report stuff, the supermodel rankings, all that and so much more. So again, just really trying to be your guys' one-stop shop for everything you need, both pre-draft and then throughout the season. So sale is going to run now through April 27th. You can get 25% off your first year of any Fantasy Life Plus package, and that promo code is early25. So again, Fantasy Life Plus, if you guys are going to be subscribing with us, first of all, thank you. But yeah, go ahead and save yourself some money now. Code early25. That's Fantasy Life Plus early bird sale. Moving right along now, we are going to the San Francisco 49ers, picking 11th in the first round. However, I'm assuming that's going to be used on defense. So I want to go down here a bit. Now, this team has a ton of picks that they're going to be able to use even on day 2 and beyond. So want to take that number 100 overall selection and get Kyle Shanahan a running back that we know he is looking at. That is Bashaw Tootin. Just seems like this dude was made to be running in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And you know he wants speed. Why not get the guy with one of the highest speed scores alongside Isaac Guerrero that we've seen in recent memory? So 98th percentile speed score, 97th percentile burst score. The guy is big, he is fast, and he's also pretty good at football too. If you do look at a graph, with his missed tackles force and yards after contact per carry, you're going to see him up in that upper right hand quadrant right alongside guys like Cam Scatterbo and even Ashton Genty. So with Tootin, it does seem like one of these situations where he needs to be landing in the right scheme to really get the most out of him. And yes, I understand Christian McCaffrey will still be the clear-cut RB1, but I just know Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are not going to watch this RB class go by and not dip their feet in at least somewhat. So why not use again that extra third-round pick and get yourself maybe the freakiest RB in a class full of great ones. So just in terms of, size, speed, I understand Ashton Genty and other guys are much better. So with that in mind, Thor, somehow you landed the Cowboys pick on a podcast with 2 other Cowboys fans sitting here. So please don't mess us up. Otherwise, Dwayne and I will be very upset.
I definitely didn't.
If you mess this up, we're taking your Viking pick, just so you know.
And I think you guys are going to agree with me. I'm sending Tedero McMillan down to Dallas, and this thing didn't even have to trade up for him. For Dallas to end up with Tedero McMillan on Thursday night, they might end up having to give up extra draft equity to do it. But either way, this is your dream scenario. I think if you're Dallas, you get the legitimate pairing to CeeDee Lamb. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, he would be in heaven with this pick. Tedero McMillan's going to help out your offensive spacing as well. He's our big pterodactyl in this class. You have to respect his ability to get downtown. He has deep speed, and then he can get higher than you down there. The ball skills with him are incredible. It doesn't drop it. Spears balls outside of his frame, but down the field, he's got a really cool trick down there. So this is a pick that would really help out Dallas's offense. I think Tedero McMillan's he's a little bit underrated. The run after the catch, I think he gets a little too nitpicked for. I actually like his acceleration out of there, and the fact that he converts from a receiver to a runner just sort of seamlessly. Trust his hands so much that you don't have to waste any motion securing it. A lot of things to like about this player. I see a ton of similarities between him and Drake London. I think T. Higgins is another fair comparison for Tedero McMillan. In this scenario, he finds his destiny of essentially being an elite wide receiver 2, just like Mr. T. Higgins, and he'll be running next to CeeDee Lamb. We're sending Ted to Dallas, and I hope you boys are happy with me.
I love this, and I think you also just came up with a new nickname. Is it Tetorodactyl McMillan? Is that like the actual name for him?
Wow.
You might have come up with a new nickname. You also saved us from the Peter Schrager mock that came out this morning that sent him all the way falling down to pick 19 with the Bucs, which would kind of be a nightmare early for him in his career, right? It was going to be more of a third wheel like what Rome had to deal with. So fantasy managers, I think, would much prefer this landing spot in Dallas.
You get 2 thumbs up from me as well, Thor. Good job, and accordingly, you can keep your Vikings picks. So let's go ahead and go back to Dwayne here because you are going to be up next for the Dolphins. Will not be using their 13th overall pick. Instead, though, looking at some firepower at wide receiver in round 3, which, I mean, shots fired at Nick Westbrook-Akini, Dwayne. How dare you?
Yeah, late round 3, pick 98 here for the Dolphins. We've got Isaiah Bond falling down the board due to those character concerns. And so this just feels like a fit for a guy like Mike McDaniel that just loves that speedy. And we also have a lot of unknowns right now with Tyreek Hill. Feels like every other day he's on social media, putting out encrypted sort of messages where he wants to be there, doesn't want to be there. I mean, I think there's a chance here, like, does Tyreek Hill to get traded in season? I mean, the way he acted at the end of last year was like borderline like AB. So I I think that you need to be thinking about who's another playmaker that you could potentially get into your offense that really has the speed to do a lot of the things that you want to do. And Bond is a guy that suddenly is going to fall due to these character issues. Now, can he overcome those? Is that going to keep him off the field? I can't really say. I just feel like this is a really good fit for the scheme that the Dolphins run for Isaiah Bond. So I'm going to go with Bond sitting here in round 3, pick 98 for the Dolphins.
Maybe not even in season, Dwayne. I mean, if we heard about Tyreek trade literally tomorrow over the draft weekend, I would not be overly shocked. Yeah. So Isaiah Bond, certainly someone who could be going a lot higher again if it wasn't for some of those off the field issues. Moving on to pick 14, I'm talking through the Indianapolis Colts, and almost in a similar manner as Dwayne talking through the Jets. I'm not trying to sacrifice a tight end here with a couple quarterbacks who can't really throw an accurate football, which kind of important at the position. And we also have 4 wide receivers already taking that up. Jonathan Taylor at RB. So let's hopefully find a developmental quarterback that can one day get these wide receivers the football. And accordingly, I'm looking at former Buckeye, more recently Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord. Let's use that 80th overall pick in round 3 to maybe get the future at the position. We'll see what happens. I know it's Richardson and Jones this year, but with McCord, man, has decision making, that maybe he writes checks, his arm can't always cash and everything. I get it. But when you lead college football in big time throws and turnover worthy plays, you got my interest. All right. That's something that we've seen Jameis Winston manage to do. It's got a little bit of a Drew Lock vibe to it. And again, with McCord, I do wonder if Buckeye fans just a little bit too harsh on the guy for, let's face it, really one bad game and a couple of interceptions that maybe couldn't have gone that way if Marvin Harrison Jr. just finished a route. Oh, why can't we beat Michigan? I freaking hate that school. Anyway, Syracuse here looked a lot better. I know we threw 5 picks against Pittsburgh, but still do think, former 5-star recruit, again, wants to push the ball downfield. I could see him ultimately in that Colts quarterback room, maybe being the best option as early as 2026. So give me McCord to the Colts. Now, Thor, we're going back to you. And this is our first duplicate pick of the draft. So maybe we, got our clone machine out and managed to make this happen. But just for the record, again, looking across and, your first time drafting this guy. So for the Atlanta Falcons, you want to add a compliment to Drake London and Darnell Mooney in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think Luther Burden would be a really good fantasy fit with Atlanta. Obviously they don't need the quarterback, don't need running back, probably don't need a tight end, but what they do need is a slot receiver. Maybe that ends up coming on day 2. We'll have to see. The Falcons need to maneuver a little bit because they're a little bit pick poor in this draft. But if they can maneuver a little bit, I think this would be a really good fit. Luther Burden, he needs to play next to the boundary receiver that scares the defense deep. That's Drake London. That's a good fit here. Manufacture more spacing for you. Intermediate. Right now you have Ray McLeod, who is your projected starter. You have Darnell Mooney on the other side. That's fine. Atlanta definitely needs to upgrade that slot receiver position. And the manufactured touch stuff, I think, it helps Michael Penix early in the career as he obviously loves throwing down the field like you see in that Washington with Roma Dunze. That's the stuff he's going to be doing, going forward with Drake London. But having that effective efficiency slot guy that's going to manufacture yards for you, it's something that Penix used a lot at Washington as well, right? Jalen McMillan and then Polk there in the slot used them quite a bit. So I think Luther Burden to Atlanta would be a good fit. Not in the 15 slot. You'd have to move around a little bit, get creative, but it's a good stylistic fit for his game.
I really do like that fit overall. I hadn't thought much about it because, again, not like it's a huge need for the Falcons with Mooney and London already there. But, yeah, all of a sudden you're looking at one of the better wide receiver trios in the league if they can pull that off. Maybe wouldn't have one of the better wide receiver trios in the league in Arizona joining if they do take your advice here. But that's also one of these kind of sneaky needs that we should be paying some attention to because beyond Marvin Harrison Jr., don't have a lot to love for the Cardinals with all due respect to our one true short king, Greg Dortch. So, Joanne, you will not be using the 16th overall pick to help the Cardinals wide receiver room, though. That instead will be going to their 47th overall pick in round 2.
Yeah, so Jaden Higgins is the name here for me. Now, Higgins has been a riser. When I first wrote up the rookie supermodel for wide receivers, I want to say he was like around pick 67. Then he started climbing up towards 50. In just the last couple of days, he's moved up 3 more spots. And we've updated all this stuff over on the Fantasy Life site. So if folks want to check out the latest expected mock draft capital, as well as all the latest grades from Lance's Airline, I updated all of that stuff this morning. But it works out perfect. Like now his consensus mock draft is pick 47. And that's where the Cardinals pick. And they really do need someone else to help push that vertical boundary. Really, last year, we kind of saw Marvin Harrison Jr. get stuck in that, sacrificial X. Shout out to Matt Harmon. That's a really great name of a potential of the way we think about some of these archetypes of wide receivers. But we know Marvin Harrison Jr. He can do so much more. And we saw it last year on the end breaking routes, towards the middle of the field, intermediate sort of stuff, whenever he could get on the same page with Kyler Murray. There was definitely some things there that were working for those two, but he was having to do a lot of the other things that didn't necessarily fit his game, or Kyler wasn't finding him. So if we could add another weapon that could help do some of those things, take some of that off of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s plate, allow him to just really do the things that he's good at, I think that's the key for the Cardinals passing game this year. Is you've got to find a way to unlock Marvin Harrison Jr. and let him do the things he's best at. Obviously, Jaden Higgins, a talent in his own right. He can help bring you some of those big plays. Just hasn't worked out to this point with Michael Wilson. I think most people would say for where Michael Wilson was, like the way he was scouted, he's probably outkicked his coverage. Like, he's actually given you some decent, production over his first 2 years of his career. But I think Jaden Higgins would give you an opportunity to give you a bigger playmaker on the outside. Can also do some of that on the inside. So really like the idea of adding a player of the ilk of Jaden Higgins to this Cardinals offense in an effort to really try to unlock the upside of that passing game.
Few rumors over the last few months about Higgins potentially being someone that could actually sneak into round one, but if not, certainly going to be in play for the Cardinals amongst other teams in round two. Don't think this will be the last time we hear his name here on the Fantasy Life show. Before we keep on going, though, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Bud Light.
Hey, you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Continuing right along, we have reached the Cincinnati Bengals picking number 17. Now, as we know, we already have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki. There's plenty of firepower in this passing game, and I'm not trying to come in here and take Chase Brown's job, all right? They've also kind of restructured Zach Moss, brought Samaje Perine. So, yeah, let's really try to use more of these draft picks on the offensive line, on the defense more than anything. But we have some late-round draft capital, and accordingly, I am going with Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon, joining the Bengals in round 5. Pick 153 overall. With Gordon, this is a guy where if you're one of those sickos, kind of looking at a draft a year ahead of everyone else, he was projected to go up there alongside Ashton Genty towards the top of the RB group after that prolific 2023 season when he had over 2,000 total yards and 20-plus rushing touchdowns. Unfortunately, got in a little bit of trouble before 2024 and just wasn't able to really replicate his success on the football field. But at the end of the day, we're looking at a guy who's 6'1", 226 pounds. Thor actually complimented Brian Robinson Jr. I think that would be a perfect complement, again, to some of the more slashing big playability that Chase Brown brings to the table. So not trying to take Chase's job or anything, but I do think in terms of day 3 running backs, Gordon checks a lot of boxes, and I wonder if he would even be close to available this late if he had, been able to actually declare for the draft last year. So Ollie Gordon, welcome to Cincinnati. Maybe stay away from that skyline chili. I do think it is quite, in fact, overrated. So moving along before I get the entire city pissed off of me, though, let's go back to Thor picking for the Seattle Seahawks, pick 18. I'm very happy, Thor, you did not give this guy to the Cowboys at pick 12. Pick 18 sounds like a bit better value for him.
Yeah, and Skyline Chili slander aside, the people of Cincinnati should be happy with you, because I like that compliment you just put together with Brown and Ollie Gordon. I think they mix and match really well together. The Seahawks here with Golden, you remade your entire wide receiver core over the off season. You have the new quarterback. There's all this different stuff going on. But the two receivers that you have right now, Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp, that you can rely on, both traditional slot guys, and the intention is to move full-time Smith and Jigba out to the boundary. You can't take another slot receiver, right? This team will not be taking Emeka Egbuka. They will not be taking Luther Burden. If you're going to take a receiver, it's got to be a boundary guy. Golden, I think, would be the one dude away from the trenches that they would consider here. Most mocks you see, or a lot of them, you see offensive line. I think there's an argument for Golden, and I think that, again, that's the other direction that Seattle could consider here, because it's a guy who has proven he can win from the boundary. Ding, 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 super important in Seattle's current situation, and win from the boundary at all 3 levels of the field. some people, because he's smaller, they don't think of him as a boundary guy, but the release package is really, really good with Matthew Golden. He is getting off the line. He's getting into along his route stem and then toggling the speeds. He's really, really good at that. In the route break itself, extremely efficient footwork, tends to create the separation. And again, down the field, the ball skills. He gets up off the carpet and extends for the ball. Better downtown than you would think at his frame. I think this is a pick that would make a lot of sense for Seattle. Again, if you decide to go away from offensive line, the Seahawks have all kinds of draft equity in this draft. And so it's going to be a little bit of a choose your own adventure. And I think you're going to see some three-dimensional chess within their decisions themselves. This receiver class, it falls off a shelf. Maybe some people would say after Golden, some people would say after Burden, Dash, Buka, but or there's the Iowa State kids, but a big fall off the shelf. This receiver class is down. If you can get access to one of the top two guys, and both these guys can play on the boundary, I'm talking Golden and McMillan, Seattle might just do that because of the precipitous drop-off at that position group that's not there with other positions that they can take later. So we're sending Matthew Golden to Seattle.
To Thor's point, Seahawks obviously picking at 18, so they have a chance to maybe get Golden. But after that, still have picks 50, 52, 82, and 92 inside the first three rounds. So please, for the love of God, John Schneider, let's go ahead and draft some offensive linemen there for once. But yes, Golden in round one certainly would complement JSN and Cooper Kupp nicely. Dwayne, we are now moving back to you. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers picking at number 19. And you're not really trying to mess up a good thing here because Tampa Bay returns all 11 starters to their offense again. So maybe another skill position player isn't exactly what we need here.
Yeah, I think I kind of went off script here, but I did go with an offensive lineman, Marcus Embo. Am I saying that right, Thor? Marcus Embo.
Yeah.
Okay,
wait, he's going to be the best fantasy guy for Tampa?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, because he's gonna catch a touchdown as the sixth tight end whenever they get down inside the 3-yard line, Thor. So,
you could do the
I'm
Bears fullback.
You
could do the Bears fullback dive from the one where he fumbles it. Shout out Doug.
I love that.
Sorry, producer swing.
But the main thing is what Ian said. Like, we've already got Mike Evans playing on the outside, Chris Godwin playing Z and in the slot. And then you got Jalen McMillan, who was pretty impressive down the stretch last year as the third wide receiver. And then we've got Bucky Irving, the emergence of him last year. And then we've got Sean Tucker, a guy that many of us think is underrated. And, there's an opportunity for him to get some more work. And then you still have Rashad White hanging around. So why not just try to, add more depth to that front offensive line that's going to help all of these guys? It's going to help Baker, going to help the running backs buy a little bit more time. So I just looked at their picks, looked at which offensive linemen based on some of the work that Thor had done would potentially line up with the picks that they had. And this looked like the one that would be the best value for them. So getting the guard out of Purdue and keeping all the other players that we love there, like not impacting them, like the Schrager mock where it had Tet McMillan falling down here to the Bucks. Like that got me a little scared and made me even more excited about making a pick like this for the Bucks.
Moving right along to an actual, fantasy relevant skill position player. I did like that pick though, Dwayne. I'll give you a pass. But for the Denver Broncos, I will not be giving them Omarion Hampton in round one because I think that's a bit of a reach, and I think they can honestly use that pick to help bolster their defense, or maybe actually, if Golden doesn't go, the Seahawks at pick 18, like Thor said, give Bo Nix a few more weapons. So why does Sean Payton even need to use such a high pick on a running back? I don't think he does. So accordingly, give me Texas RB Jaden Blue deep into round 6, pick 191. Overall. I do think Blue is someone who maybe would be a bit higher on people's radars if he didn't have to spend the previous 2 seasons sitting behind Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Brooks. Went out there last year and really did emerge as someone who can affect the game both as a rusher and a receiver. Just please, man, for the love of God, learn how to hold on to the football better. Ball security, job security. I know Sean Payton will not be liking that, but man, you look at what he did against Clemson, buck 46 and 2 touchdowns. I believe at least one of those was of the very long variety because he can go from 0 to 100 in an instant. And then against my Ohio State Buckeyes, also caught a pair of wheel route touchdowns. Yeah, kind of busted coverage variety, but again, could be that plus receiver. Shout out to my friends over at Player Profiler. They gave the Nyheim Hines comp. Thor actually gives Matt Breida, 2 guys who maybe I drafted a bit too much over the years, but I like that style. Again, that guy who can catch the passes and rip off some big plays. Just again, ball security. We improved that. Could be looking at a late round gem. So I am liking Jaden Blue to the Broncos. Thor, you actually have a double pick, if you will, for our next team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looking at again the 21st overall selection. I don't think it's a secret that they need a quarterback badly, and you happen to have 2 in mind.
Yeah, Dwayne's become the trench guy in this exercise, and so I'm going to go with the sexy positions here and talk about two different quarterbacks in Shadir Sanders and Jackson Dart for Pittsburgh. What direction is Pittsburgh going to go? Well, we went through this dance with them 3 years ago. Eerily similar spot to where they're sitting on the board now, right? And during that one, they took Kenny Pickett over Malik Willis in one of the worst quarterback classes that you will ever see. Fortunately, this one's a little bit better. Will they get access to Jackson Dart? There's been some steam above there. Will Shadir Sanders fall down here? There's reports of that as well. Arthur Smith, he can build an offense around one of these two guys. I know you guys aren't the biggest fan of Arthur Smith, but the play action, throw deep concepts, and then the scrambling machinations, that would be a fit with Dart. And then getting the class's best quarterback at 21, that would be your fit with Shadir Sanders. Shadir Sanders, the weird stuff around there as far as the narrative. And we've talked about that. It's hard to get pinned down accurate information about that. I don't think anybody has it, right? So where will he fall on the board? But Shadir Sanders was said to have had a good meeting and visit with Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin mentioned that he's friends with Dion, et cetera, and that him and Shadir had a great talk, et cetera. So just from a talent perspective, that one would make all kinds of sense. And the two good boundary receivers there with Pittsburgh, I think, would appreciate playing with Shadir Sanders and the accuracy and the placement that he has. But either quarterback that Pittsburgh takes here, it's going to be really interesting for Superflex Dynasty owners.
Shador actually got asked about his favorite quarterback wide receiver duos recently, and he said Derek Carr and Chris Olave, whoever is thrown to DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and whoever is thrown to Malik Neighbors. So just, some soft hints about maybe where Shador would like to be suiting up here on Sundays soon enough. Dwayne, we're going back to you. You have declined to invest in the offensive line for the Los Angeles Chargers. Good job by you, my friend. However, you do have them actually using their first-round pick, 22nd overall, on their offense, and specifically on someone who maybe, Dwayne, this would be like the most fantasy-friendly, clear-cut pass catcher fit I think we've gone over in the entire draft.
Yeah, a lot of first-round picks already on that offensive line. So they kind of got that covered. But Colston Loveland, which, this feels dicier and dicier by the day. If you looked at Schrager's mock draft today, I think we had Colston Loveland, the Colts trading up to pick 10 to get Colston Loveland. So this is a guy that now if you look at his mock draft data, it's up to 17. It was sitting at 22 just like a week ago. So this is a guy that's kind of closing the gap with Tyler Warren. So I don't know how realistic this one is. Like a few days ago, we felt pretty comfortable thinking that we could project Colston Loveland going to the Chargers. But look, obviously it would be a great situation for almost any pass catcher because we've got Ladd McConkey. And then really outside of that, we have a lot of question marks. If we look at Quentin Johnston, he's ultimately just not lived up to the first round hype, has real problems hanging onto the ball. He's an athlete and everything, but not someone you can really trust to be a staple in your offense. Mike Williams, maybe he does, rebound. He's coming off of that injury season 2 years ago. Last year didn't do much, but got to the Jets a little bit late, or got integrated into their offense a little bit late coming off the injury. So maybe he could end up doing something, but I feel like there's a pretty wide open path for whoever the Chargers want to add here to be the number 2 option in the offense behind Ladd McConkey, whether they decide to go with a wide receiver here or whether they get lucky and it is a guy like Colston Loveland. I do really love Loveland because I think he can attack all layers of the field, Ian. Like he can do the underneath stuff, not the run after the catch guy that Tyler Warren is, but he can get to those intermediate areas of the zone. He's a mismatch versus linebackers and safeties, and he can get deep on you in that seam. And you think about an offense like this, a lot of play action. You got a strong arm quarterback in Justin Herbert who can get it there and is very willing to toss those BBs into coverage. And I think that's going to be a great thing for Loveland. So if this one could work out, I think it would be a smash for the rookie tight end out of Michigan.
There have been some rumors. I know Benjamin Albright was on record saying that some teams are a bit concerned about Loveland's shoulder. So, hey, if the Chargers are feeling good and maybe some other teams are not, maybe just maybe this match made in fantasy football heaven could happen. Moving along to the Green Bay Packers, I feel like Ted McMillan here at pick 23 just isn't going to happen. I want it to happen, okay, Packers fans. I would love for you guys to get your first round wide receiver since Javon Walker back in 2002. But again, just don't quite see them having a chance to get him. don't really want a Buka or Golden there. I think the overlap, with someone like Jaden Reed is probably enough. So let's actually go ahead and double dip back to Mr. Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State star, with that round 2 pick, 54th overall. Just think that, again, when you kind of look at what this offense needs, I think it's a bigger bodied, someone who can go up there and turn those 50-50 contested catches into 70-30 propositions. I think Stanford's Alec Ayomanor would also be, a decent enough round 2 fit there for him. And again, it's just adding someone in that wide receiver room that gives you a bit of a different profile, especially with Christian Watson seemingly out for a bit. We need someone who can, again, threaten defenses a bit more downfield and in the red zone than what they have right now. So Jaden Higgins wearing the green in Lambeau. We will see what happens. Now, guys, really, you could argue it's the main event here. He gets to keep the pick because he helped out the Cowboys. You're picking for your Minnesota Vikings here, pick 24. You will not be using the first round pick on them. However, it is still a top 100 selection on a wide receiver that maybe everyone isn't all too familiar with.
Yeah, I gotta shout out my boy Isaac Tesla here. This guy is a sleeper in this receiver class. Tesla, you're talking about 6'4", 214 pounds, big slot with 99th percentile size adjusted athleticism. The circumstance he had at Arkansas the last 2 years was not the best. They had a bunch of depth at wide receiver, did not have a quarterback that was good with accuracy or anticipatory concepts or the timing stuff, but they would lollipop it to Tesla downfield, and you got to see him get off the carpet. You're not getting higher than Tesla. That's a kid with a really big vertical. I believe it was 39.5 inches as far as that goes. But a very, very good athlete and a guy who has been overlooked to this point as a big slot. You think about the Vikings offense. You already have your top 2 running backs. Obviously, the quarterback position's taken. You have the stud boundary receivers. You have T.J. Hawkinson and even Josh Aubrey. You run the 12. The one thing that offense could use is a slot receiver. It's the reason they signed Rondale Moore to that cheap 1-year deal. You get Tesla, you're ejecting Rondale Moore for now. He can be a backup. Tesla, I think, would play early on. Vikings mix and match the 11 personnel, the 12 personnel. When you have the 11 personnel out there, Tesla would be your big slot, and he can win. Like I said, win downfield. It's very important for his game. You have the slot receiver that can stretch the field down there, and then you think of Jefferson and Addison around it and how that could help in Hawkinson as well. I'm going to send Isaac Tesla to Minnesota Vikings.
Or a question:
jump.
If Isaac Tesla and Harold Fannin are both available at this pick, are you taking Tesla over Fannin?
You're putting me to Sophie's choice. I think I would go Fannin, but I would not have Tesla too far behind. But yeah. It's hard for me to quit Fannin. I'm not, at the company's Fannin love rankings. I know that I'm not at the top, but I'm trying to work my way up.
Certainly is. I mean, I've seen some people wonder if they could actually go Mecca Ibuka at the end of round 1. You have Jefferson and Addison. You don't need a wide receiver, but it still would be nice to get an upgrade over Mr. Jalen Naylor. So Thor thinks that guy could be Isaac Tesla again, going there in round 3. Moving on, Dwayne, the Houston Texans are another team who has been rumored to potentially be looking at Ibuka or one of these wide receivers at the end of round 1. You were thinking actually different, though. Maybe someone who could be challenging Joe Mixon for some carries there in round 2.
Yeah, looking round 2, and really there's going to be a pocket of backs here. I've got Quinshon Judkins. It's pick 2. It's round 2, pick 58. Theoretically, right now, if we look at that, that's going to be after Judkins is gone. It's in the range, right? Judkins right now is sitting, I think, around pick 47 in the latest mock draft data. So this could be potentially 10 picks off. But we could still go with another guy like Caleb Johnson. I know the supermodel said that he's overrated, but he would fit the bill as well. And I'm just giving Thor a chance to jump back in here and tell me that I'm a complete fraud now that I'm naming Caleb Johnson at the top of the second round. But I just think your point's the bigger part, Ian. This is a team that wants to really be a balanced to run balance sort of offense. They want to use play action. They want to mix up their formation. They want to mix up their personnel. So if you look at Joe Mixon, as much as we love him and we think that he was an absolute steal last year in fantasy drafts and could be again this year, like people are kind of snoozing on him a little bit, if I'm the team, I'm thinking I need another back, because at this point, I don't think that Dameon Pierce is it. We know that Dare Ogunbowale is really just more of a passing down guy that you can rotate in. So grabbing a young running back and a deep class where you're getting a quality player at the top of second round that probably, complements Joe Mixon this year, maybe gets 40-45% of the carries, lightens the load for him, but then next year takes over as your lead back, and you got him in the second round this year. So I really like the idea of the Texans targeting a running back at the top half of this second round here.
Again, maybe not the biggest fantasy ceiling for Judkins in this situation in 2025, but you're spot on, Dwayne. As early as 2026, really could turn out to be one heck of an asset. Moving right along, pick 26. I am on the clock for the Los Angeles Rams. And look, they have pick 26, and they actually don't pick again until the 90th overall selection in round 3. So I'm actually going to be going once again deep into those day 3 waters with Notre Dame quarterback Riley Leonard as a developmental project with pick 190 there in round 6. I could also be talking to Jalen Milroe. I just want to see someone in the Sean McVay system that can actually run, okay? We've had to watch Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Jimmy freaking Garoppolo for a few stretches, all right? I want someone who can move, so why not take the guy that Thor has comped to righty Tebow, all right? This guy is not afraid to lower his head. We saw that first drive against Ohio State, freaking running quarterback power into these beasts, 10 times out there. And I also do think that when you look at what he can do as a passer, he has the tools. We just need to develop them a bit more. So big arm, he can move around. And who should we trust with someone like that? I would say one of the best quarterback whisperers of our generation and probably ever in Sean McVay. So give me Riley Leonard to a team that really does seem like they're going to be forced to move on from Matthew Stafford before too long. Back-to-back all season now with those contract negotiations and, not getting any bit younger. So give me Leonard to the Rams. Thor, we're going back to you to the Ravens here. Will not be using, again, the 27th overall pick. However, you do like them adding to their wide receiver room with the 91st overall pick of round 3.
Yeah, we'll call this one the late third, but the Ravens all set with their starting projected skill players, of course. What could they use there? I would think it would be a wide receiver for the future. DeAndre Hopkins obviously getting up there in age, and Rashad Bateman, the reliability has been up and down there. Why not bring in a guy who I comp to Rashad Bateman, but it would really be more reliable, Rashad Bateman, in Torrey Horton from Colorado State. A lot of similarities between those guys. Torrey Horton, really like his game, really productive at Colorado State. And I think he's going to be had for a draft day discount because his season last year got wrecked by an injury down the stretch, but he's fine now. So there will be no lasting effects from that. Torrey Horton to the Baltimore Ravens.
Dwayne, back to you for the Detroit Lions. I'd love this running. No, it's not. Is it a wide receiver? Oh, no, it's another freaking offensive lineman, Dwayne. Talk about North Dakota State guard Gray Zabel. Is that even a real person?
I can't even tell you anything about him. I'm just saying, let's not mess things up. We've got David Montgomery. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've got Sam Laporta and Jamison Williams. We have enough mouths to feed here. We've got plenty of quality at the skill positions. So let's go with Gray Zabel. Let's add some strength to that front 5 and just make things better for the rest of these guys. If I were to get technical and you were like to try to pin me down and say, hey, we really need another skill position player here, I probably would go wide receiver, right? Because we've got Tim Patrick right now penciled in to be starting on the outside. You got Khalif Raymond there. So there could be an opportunity to go after someone like a Jalen Knoll, Trey Harris, someone along those lines. Ian, not in round 1, obviously. You're looking more round 2, even round 3. Alec Iomanor, a guy that the supermodel doesn't necessarily love, but I could see the archetype of the player potentially fitting, right, with what the Lions don't have when you look at their current pass catchers. So I think there could be an opportunity to look at upgrading your wide receiver 3, essentially. But I think the easier bet is just to make the offensive line even better. And we know Dan Campbell loves to pound that rock. So I think it could also just make sense from a mentality standpoint of what the Lions are trying to do. Most likely, they're going defense here. But if not, I would say offensive line.
Jack Bech could maybe be a fun guy here for Detroit in round 2 as well.
But he's
maybe
mostly a slot guy.
I was about to say might overlap a little bit with Amon-Ra. So
I think you need a big-bodied vertical X that you would think would be an upgrade over Tim Patrick, which I know, Ian, I can't even mention those words in front of you. That's I can't say Tim Patrick, and an upgrade. There's no such thing over him. But I think that's what you would have be needing to look for, is someone that you think just gave you a little bit more pop on the outside over the old vet.
I hate it when you're right, Dwayne, but I guess you won this round. So let's move on. I'm picking for the Washington Commanders here, pick 29. I'm actually staying in round 1 and giving them another Ohio State wide receiver, and that is Emeka Egbuka. So hopefully, Deebo Samuel is fine and everything, but hey, we could get some 3 wide receiver sets of Scary Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, and yes, Emeka Egbuka. So honestly, with Egbuka, I don't think he's slot only at all. I think he can play Z. My comp continues to be Gen Z, Robert Woods, aka Bobby Trees. I think he fits in almost any single offense in the league. At the end of the day, this would be a great value point. You want to continue to get Jaden Daniels plenty of weapons. Just far too many games last year where we had to watch Diami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, and yes, even Noah Brown be relied on heavily behind Terry McLaurin. Zach Ertz, old man Zach Ertz had 16 targets, all right, in that NFC Championship loss. So getting someone like Emeka makes life that much harder for defenses to focus on one player, and again, makes this offense that much scarier. So give me Emeka to the Commanders at pick 29. Thor, you
Ian, I just have to say real quick, like before we jump to Thor on this next one, but if you did add Egbuka and Debo was actually just playing hurt last year with pneumonia and he's fine, like what's the sky is the limit for Jaden Daniels? Like maybe the one guy that could throw for 4,500 yards and rush for 1,000 like in a season, like that could be pretty freaking amazing. I know like we're getting out ahead of ourselves there, but like that would be a very loaded pass catcher room with obviously Terry McLaurin also in the fold.
I mean, it's kind of like Thor was talking about with Genty earlier, how he actually could be the RB1 overall. I think we would still be ranking Lamar and Josh ahead of Daniels, but it wouldn't shock me if we saw him actually outperforming those guys and, couldn't exactly call you crazy if you wanted to go ahead and rank them.
And great call, man. The Zach Ertz targets going to Egbuka in that range of the field, like that's an upgrade. Sorry, Zach.
Please. I'm also not ruining the Ben Sinnott second-year truthers out there. So now to the Buffalo Bills. Thor, you are going to be not using their 30th overall pick on another wide receiver, actually going hard in the paint with pick 56 in round 2, and for the third time taking a certain Iowa State wide receiver.
Oh, one guy.
Yeah, this is a team that needs a boundary receiver. They took one last year, first pick of the second round, traded down one spot with the Panthers in Keon Coleman. But Keon Coleman, it's a one-trick pony downfield. You need more help than that. Josh Palmer's the projected starter on the other side. I think the round 2 pick would be a nice spot here for Buffalo to get the boundary receiver. You obviously have Khalil Shakir in the slot. I think Jaden Higgins would be a good fit for them. And a guy who doesn't drop the ball at all, 3% career drop rate, 2.2% or less the last 3 years. I think this would be a good fit. We're going to send Jaden Higgins to Buffalo.
Moving on to the Chiefs at pick 31. You actually, Dwayne, I like this pick, all right? I haven't liked all of them, I think you can tell, but I do like this one because the Chiefs, maybe not a team that we've seen being mocked a running back very often, especially not in round 1. Just seems like, PTSCEHD. I think I actually did that right. We got going on there. So you will not be using the round 1 pick on RB. However, if a certain someone falls to them in round 3, I mean, my God, dude, if he earns a starting job, man, we could be all the way in terms of fantasy value.
Yeah, I mean, if they took Travion at the end of round 1, we would love it. But assuming that doesn't happen, I really love Cam Scatabo and his skill set potentially fitting here in the Chiefs because this is a guy. It's a guy that can really do everything. And a lot of times when you hear the scouts talk about them, they look at it as, oh, this is a guy you could add to your roster. And if your lead back went down, he could fill in a couple games, give you 17, 18 carries. Oh, your passing back went down. He could jump out there and handle passing downs. Well, the way the supermodel looks at him is, what if he just did all those things, on your offense? And when we look at the Chiefs, it's a pretty soft landing spot. Like Elijah Mitchell's the most explosive playmaker they have there, but he continuously gets hurt. Kareem Hunt, I mean, yeoman's work last year. You're not going to take anything away from how tough the man ran, but like he's not adding a lot of value to what you're trying to get there when you're handing off those plays to Kareem Hunt. So I just look at the landing spot. I think about the way the offense wants to play, and I just see Cam Scatabo as being this guy that can really do all those things. And if he managed to take over all those roles, look, and I know Isaiah Pacheco is still there, was coming off the injury last year. It's not like you're just going to immediately be penciled in to take over the starting role from Pacheco. In fact, to start the year, I would think Pacheco would be the starting early down back. But we just know how the NFL season goes. There's just chaos. There's injuries. Things change. And Scatabo just has the skill set to play on a pass-heavy team. And I think that's honestly like one of the best paths for him becoming an every down back, is landing on a team that wants to throw the ball all the time, where they know they're not trying to give their running back 25 carries. They're trying to give them, 12 to 15 to the lead back and then let them play on those passing downs. Like that would be a really good fit for a guy like Scatabo. So yeah, you get a guy in the 3rd round that I think could eventually turn into an absolute fantasy football goldmine if he's on the Chiefs.
We as a society talked ourselves into Carson Steele being a thing for the Chiefs last year. All right. I think if we got Cam Scatabo there, guys, we would be awfully excited, and for, probably much better reasons. Thor,
I wrote about that for the magazine. Yeah, so I wrote about that. I was like, "Oh no, you spent all your fab on Carson Steele the week before. Now what do you do?
Sad times.
Need a plan B."
Thor, close us out. Philadelphia Eagles, you are not using the 32nd overall pick on this spot. Seems like they might be going for some D-line depth there. However, end of round 2 might be a good time to add some more wide receiver firepower to an already pretty great room.
Yeah, I'm gonna send Trey Harris, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, to the Eagles at the end of the second round there. And Ian, I know that you know where I'm going with this because I saw that you were talking about his yards per route run, which Trey Harris says last year at Ole Miss, which were, you have to see it to believe it. I'm not even going to cite the number because you folks out there would not believe me. Look up one of the charts with Trey Harris's yards per route run against every other FBS receiver. Your eyes will bug out of your head and you will not be looking at a typo. That being said, it's interesting with his evaluation because he was often the first read receiver in that offense where we criticized Jackson Dart in his evaluation, the black box of it, he always went to his first read. That was Trey Harris. It's a guy who runs a limited route tree. He goes deep. He does the slants. He does the hitch. When they do the drop zone, he does the little baby hook of 5 yards. Throw it to me now. That's what you see with him. And then there's some stuff behind the line of scrimmage as well. It's a lot of cotton candy production, but this is an interesting sort of ball of clay guy. It just, you sort of parse that through. But I think this guy is going to end up going late round 2. And this would be a place where he could potentially start early. You have Jahan Dotson on the other side on the boundary from A.J. Brown. You could definitely use another boundary receiver. So I'm going to send Trey Harris over to Philadelphia.
I know obviously different positions, but if we do end up seeing Dallas Goedert traded, as has been rumored for a while, could be that much more important for the Eagles to maintain a deep wide receiver room. So like that pick. Good job, boys. We made it through all 32, and now it's just time to get ready for the real thing. So make sure you guys check out the Fantasy Life show throughout draft weekend. Going to have Thor going through each and every pick, and then nighttime recaps for myself, Dwayne, and the great Kendall Valenzuela. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and enjoy the weekend, guys. Just seriously make it a great one. So for Thor, for Dwayne, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning into the Fantasy Life show. And until next time, take care, everybody.